Okay, so before you guys come at me in the comments, yes, I'm fully aware that the pandemic was an awful time. People lost jobs, many people died, and it was a scary, lonely, yet also very chaotic time of our lives. But, and I say this cautiously, 2020 was also the calmest my life had ever felt. And I've been kind of chasing that calm ever since. Now, I know it sounds weird to say you miss a time when the world was basically shut down, but for someone like me, an introvert, someone who's constantly overstimulated by everything, that global pause, that forced slowdown, it felt like the world finally started moving at my pace. And maybe your pace too, right? Empty freeways, empty streets, no social pressure. Well, no. Let me backtrack. Most people messed up. Not everyone. I messed up, but I wouldn't say everyone messed up because that wasn't true. But anyways, no awkward small talk, right? Takeout only. No packed restaurants if they're open, which I doubt many were. A lot of them were takeout only, and also yeah, food deliveries. When it comes to like stuff like that, but a lot of people also took up on home cooking, baking, and all that. Oh, travel. Hotels were cheap. Flights were dirt cheap. Airports were really empty. And I missed the time too when, they blocked off the middle seat, right? But also, just in general, life felt minimal, stripped down, and I loved every single beat of it. Also, remember those first few weeks, like when everyone was baking banana bread, going on quiet walks or run, and basically binge watching Netflix. Tiger King specifically, that show blew up. And then trying to figure out how to make Zoom work, really, from educational level to professional level and stuff. But the biggest thing of all is TikTok. It exploded, right? I remember scrolling through, that freaking app for hours and hours. I mean, I still have it. And everything felt so creative, unfiltered, and really weird. So weird that I got into it too, made my own weird and unfiltered creative content, I suppose. Garnered like 1,400 followers, and then I eventually was like, okay, this isn't for me, deleting it now. So yeah, you can't even find any traces of me. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe someone out there like downloaded my videos or something and then impersonating me. But anyways, here in the USA, the government, they sent us money, stimulus checks, and 1,400, 1,200, and I don't know what was the last one, $600, I don't know, but a lot of money. I mean, I was already working corporate life and all that. Everybody really, well, most folks, I wouldn't say everybody, most folks were sent home to work remotely and stuff, and I was lucky enough to do that as well, and I was living pretty good. I wouldn't say I was making a lot of money, but definitely it was enough to live. But it also obviously triggered the stimulus checks payment, which was a blessing. And I was like, I can breathe financially, at least a little, even just pay a little bit of my rent, save me a couple $1,000, thanks to the government. So that was wild, but also that was really nice. And then there was this like vibe, like we were all in it together, no FOMO, no flexing, no pressure to hustle, and just exist. And yeah, maybe that's why I felt okay, because everyone else slowed down too. But one of the best things I did during lockdown though was enjoy nature once again. So road trips was a big one. I hit up Zion National Park, Death Valley, Sequoia, places normally packed year round, but are now completely open, or were completely open. But empty roads, clean air, no annoying, noisy tourists or something like that. But I mean, I love tourists, obviously, but don't get me wrong. But yeah, they're, especially nowadays, right? It's just insane. But I remember just standing in the middle of the desert or, amongst those giant trees and whatnot and thinking, wow, this is what peace feels like. This is life. This is what it means to be one with nature, becoming, just living human, you know. So no crowds, no rushing, just me, the road, and nature really experience it, breathe again for a bit, right? And it's not just me, actually, my fiance was there too, but you know. And even back in the city, walking outside was different, right? It was quieter, softer, like the volume of life like turned down a few notches, which is amazing. And it made me fall in love with just being outside in general. Oh, and let's not forget the video game era. You know, that took off. Personally, for me, I fell deep into Red Dead Redemption 2 because, well, I bought the game, I think, in late 2018, but never really cracked it open. It was still sealed until 2020, May 2020 to be exact. I finally opened it up and was like, you know what, let's play it, see what it's all about. And sure enough, I was hooked, you know. Just wandering through the world for hours, like I was really out there, you know, enjoying the wild, wild west life, I guess. But yeah, you know, Destiny 2 raids as well, late at night, with strangers that I don't really know, clans that I just suddenly joined, and then they kicked me out because I didn't play again after that. But anyways, Animal Crossing 2, it was big, you know, it blew up. Nintendo Switch sales was like skyrocketed and stuff like that. I was even scammed myself because I thought I was buying a $200 refurbished Nintendo Switch. And sure enough, it was a fake website. And yeah, I was just stupid, but luckily it wasn't, you know, a full-on hacking mode kind of thing. It's just like a stupid me kind of purchase. But anyways, point being, little bird walk there. I wasn't a hardcore fan though. And, you know, I just decided to hop on the trend as well, see what it's all about. But, you know, I got it. And yeah, it felt like we were all hanging out in these digital worlds together, you know, because real life was frozen out there. So this is where we just kind of felt normal again. And gaming wasn't just a hobby during lockdown for many. It felt like a lifeline. A lot of people, you know, became a streamer just because thanks to the lockdown, right? They were like, oh, let's try this streaming thing, you know, let's check out Twitch, or what's the other one, YouTube stream or something like that, live YouTube, whatever. And started streaming their games, and next thing you know, a couple months later, they blew up, and now that's what they do for a living. So that was really cool, and props to them. But there was this other shift as well, like this explosion of personal transport. So everybody that I know, mostly coworkers, acquaintances and stuff, they started purchasing bikes, e-bikes specifically. Guilty here, actually. So, and then e-scooters, e-skateboards. I bought 2 e-skateboards, you know, electric skateboards. But anyway, suddenly people were cruising around on, you know, stuff you barely saw before. And yeah, I was one of them. You know, back then, riding one of those kind of felt niche, even taboo. I remember being called out in 2019 riding my electric scooter back then, and someone was like, "Those are illegal. You're not allowed to ride that here." But now, you know, totally normal. We have Lime everywhere, Bird scooters, and whatever rental scooters you guys got in your states or country. But in 2020, it felt freeing. You know, I'd hop on my electric scooter or electric skateboard, ride through empty streets, earphones on, and wind in my face. And for a moment, it felt like the world belonged to me again, you know. So maybe you experienced something similar. Let me know down in the comments. But yeah. And then the world came back. So slowly, then, you know, all at once, right? So traffic returned, you know. Everyone got loud again. The crowds, the lines, the hustle, the pressure to be on at all times. It came roaring back. And part of me just, I guess, never adjusted. You know, I still work remote, luckily, so that was really nice. But I missed the stillness, though. You know, I miss when nobody expected anything from anyone. And I miss my long walks. I mean, I still do, but back then, you know, long walks with no destination. Now it's like, oh, I gotta get my walks in before a bunch of people show up here, you know. I miss the silence of closed malls, too. I mean, a lot of malls are still pretty empty, even though they're open. But, you know, it was silent. And then, yeah, empty restaurants, right? Or at least only at some capacity kind of restaurant sitting arrangement. And also, yeah, I miss the late night drives on I-5. This our expressway, our freeway. Yeah, it was empty. No cars in sight, really. I mean, a couple of truckers folks there. Shout out to the truckers that we got, during the pandemic then. I mean, even now, for hustle and bustling and, just really making sure deliveries get through and the goods and stuff are delivered to us. So huge shout out to you guys. But yeah, anyways, maybe I'm just romanticizing it a bit, but it's not about loving a crisis. It's about realizing that for once, the way the world operated actually worked for, well, me and I guess maybe you and maybe other people. So yeah, I'm not proud of it, but also I'm not ashamed to say it. I kind of miss the lockdown pandemic times. And if you do too, if you've been quietly thinking the same thing but felt too weird to say it out loud, you're not alone. I mean, you look at Reddit, there's so many of them too over there. And maybe some of the folks on YouTube too, they got it. They posted something similar like this, but with different thoughts about it. But yeah, let's just call it what it was. It was a strange time filled with fear, uncertainty, and definitely grief, but also somehow a time of quiet clarity for many people like you and I. So if this hit you at all, leave a comment down below. Again, let's make this a space for the ones who felt most alive when the world stood still. But other than that though, guys, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I don't know what topic I'll discuss next, but if you have something in mind, let me know. I might relate to it and provide you with my own thoughts, I guess. But for now, I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.